Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting, a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Select Board to order on March 3rd. Our first agenda item is open forum. If anybody has anything that they would like to discuss, panelists, you can use the raise hand button. Anybody else can use the question and answer. I don't see anything. But I will take this opportunity to also remind everyone that this is being recorded and it will be part of the public record. If you have any questions, panelists can raise their hand using the button below, like on the bottom of your screen. And again, any attendees can use the question and answer button, should be at the bottom of your screen as well. So brings us to our 7:05 agenda. The capital presentation and revenue presentation. I think, Dan, you're gonna take that away.
Sure, I'll get this up on the screen.
Great.
And during this, please feel free to stop me and ask questions at any time, so I get a break from talking. So, all right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, so here's our capital presentation for this upcoming annual town meeting. Of course, we want to list all the participants from the Capital Planning Committee. We have Paul Hajar, our chair. I'm vice chair, and I get delegated to give the presentation. We have Anita from the Select Board, Mark Koss, who's a resident at large, Jody, of course, Valerie Young from the School Committee, Chris Barrett, who's on various committees, Heather Fitzpatrick's our main FinCom rep, and Christina is the alternate, and they attended all the meetings. Tom Mahana from the Permanent Town Building Committee, and of course we have Chris Chu, the school superintendent, and Pat Lenhart as the alternate. So we met 8 times starting in August and ending in January, and we reviewed each department's capital needs, not just for this year, but for the outlying years. Most of the projects that we are talking about tonight do have recent quotes. And as always, we have a lot of coordination between boards to maximize efficiency, and it's part of the capital planning policy to actually have that integration with other boards. We use CPA funds where we could. ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, was something that's an available resource this year. For any building projects over $50,000, they're required to go to a Permanent Town Building Committee for approval. And again, just a lot of communication with other boards like the school committee, library, pedestrian, safety. The newly formed DPW has been working great. All the projects are coordinated that they put forward, and we always evaluate available grants out there as well. Again, just department heads did a great job providing information. We asked a lot of follow-up questions. They were always quick to respond against the information that was asked. The plan that we're presented tonight does fit within the financial model. If anything isn't funded, the capital committee will probably review and see what impact that might have and get back to you on that. But we don't feel that anything was left off that is deemed critical. So right now, the capital stabilization balance is at a healthy $1,049,000. And we're recommending adding the final $80,000 from Cornerstone Square this year into the stabilization. And on this plan, you're going to see $15.6 million worth of projects utilizing various types of funding: pay-as-you-go, free cash, bonds, enterprise, and so on. Several items were submitted to the Select Board for emergency funding. 2 of those were funded that we'll get to when we're going through the projects. And our 5-year rolling total of requests exceeds $63 million. This has been the same since we formed in 2009. Every 5-year plan has been over $50 million. So again, I'm going to move forward and show you that 63 million, how that breakdown is. There are a couple large projects in here, including the center building and the library expansion. Really brings up that total. And then we can dive right into the projects. So as I'm going through these, if you want to ask questions on individual ones, it's probably easier just to raise your hand and ask. I'm going to zoom in so you can actually see it. Just go down the left-hand side here. So we're starting with IT. We have the town computers for $46,000, a little bit higher than past years because Mike Walls wants to purchase a large format printer as well. It's due for replacement. The school computers, they're requesting 106,796. However, since we're having the June town meeting, Mike is requesting a budget transfer in early May for 228,000. So just like we've done the past couple of years with the June meetings, Mike will be coming forward to the FinCom and Select Board to request a budget transfer. We're in year 2 of the network upgrades. Last year, we appropriated 250,000, and Mike Wells did take advantage of the E-rate program. We received 57,000 back in rebates. So we're applying that to this year's request. So instead of 250,000, it's only 193,000. Of course, we have our normal storage replacements of 102,000. Moving on to fire and ambulance, they're requesting 2 rescue boats. Both their boats are separating at the hull, and they need to be replaced in order to be used. We are planning on using 49,000 from free cash and 24,000 from the ambulance enterprise to fund those. And next up, we're into the schools. We have the central office redistricting and feasibility study. As you all know, the Millennium building has been around for quite a long time, over 20 years, and it's meant as a temporary building. However, while they're looking at new space to possibly use as central office, they want to look at the school system as in its entirety, looking at demographics, space utilization, redistricting, and grade configuration. So this is, they're working on putting this study together. Next up, we have replacement freezer and refrigerator at the Miller School. Then we need a new mail courier vehicle. It's going to be electric. They're looking at a 2022 Ford E-Transit. That's exciting. I believe the current vehicle is 5 years old and has over 150,000 miles on it. So it's time to be replaced. And same with the replacement truck with the plow. They've asked for this for the past couple of years and it's been delayed, but it's finally time to actually get this new truck. And we're moving into the DPW section here. Of course, we have the Boston Road project coming up, and engineering is requesting $100,000 for those appraisals. Then we have the design, couple actually pedestrian safety improvement projects. The design construction of improvements at West Street and East Prescott Street, and also pedestrian improvements at Carlisle Road and Jack Walsh for $45,000 and $40,000 respectively. It's increased signage, better ramps, a lot more warning that crosswalks coming up, and just on their high priority list. We have another project here from the Pedestrian Safety Committee for the Plain Road Phase 2 pedestrian improvements. This is for design. This will extend the Plain Road sidewalk from Grassy Pond down to the Stony Brook Conservation Land. And to wrap up the DPW, looking at a 1-ton dump truck for $65,000. They're replacing a 2008 vehicle, I believe, with over 110,000 miles that they use every day. So they really need to replace that one. All right, down here we have the Blanchard Wastewater Treatment Plant Rehab. The Select Board did approve $30,000 of ARPA funding to fund a design. This project has to get done over the summer, so Steve Crone's been working on that to get the design done. So prove that annual town meeting, they can complete the project over the summer. Then the last one is for the library designer fees and cost estimating. It's for $10,000. They need a better cost estimate for the new library expansion prior to being awarded the grant. There are cost escalations that do occur, and their last estimate was good through March of 2020. So we want to make sure that we're not short when we do bring this project forward. And lastly, we have that $80,000 for the capital stabilization I mentioned. So this is page 1 of the projects. Do we have any questions on this or this first set? I'll keep going if not.
Dan?
Yes.
Okay. Can you go to the previous page?
Yep.
Okay, so boats. Are they stationed in each of the ponds, or they will be hauled whenever they are needed and then launched into the water and then taken them?
They're stationed at the fire station. So one's going to be in Nab and one in Forge. And so they're on trailers. As they respond, they'll bring them to whatever body of water they need to go to.
And then they will launch it down and then, okay, got it.
Yep.
And they're, the central office redistricting feasibility study. Is it a fancy way of saying looking for alternative designs for Millennium School?
That's definitely part of the study. That was the main concern to start, but they expanded the scope of the study when they brought the capital.
And what are all things that are included in that central office redistricting feasibility study?
What's included? All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right. So
What are the other things other than Millennium School are included in this?
besides Millennium, well, they're looking at a study for the all the schools in general, kind of how to move forward in the future. I have my cheat sheet here, so they're looking at to look at the town's demographics for the students, how to utilize the space within the existing schools.
Oh, got it. Sorry.
Possible redistricting, things like that. So
sorry, I understood differently. Then now I understood. Basically, we want to see if we can send people to Abbott or Miller, or how to figure out which areas go to which school.
yeah, they're saying that would be part of the study. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any other hands, so I'm gonna keep going here. So these are all the projects that were funded through free cash. Pay as you go. I'll go to the next page here. All right. Now we have the other sources of funding here. The next section is community preservation funding. We have 3 projects that were already recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. One is a supplemental for the Robinson Playground replacement of $139,000. The next is the design for the Jack Walsh tennis and basketball courts down in Parker. Apparently the courts are currently closed and they can't be used because they're in such rough condition. And then lastly, we have the Parkerville Schoolhouse roof replacement. All right, then moving on to enterprise funding. We have 3 projects here. The first is for the Depot Road well replacement. This well was originally dug back in the 1970s and it needs to be done again. We currently have the Country Road well offline at this moment too, so we want to make sure that we get this project going. Next up is the Forge Village Water Treatment Plant dehumidifiers, which will go in the plant at Forge Village. If we get too much condensation on the equipment there, it's going to fail earlier. So this is a worthwhile investment to actually replace these humidifiers, which last about 20 years apiece. And then for stormwater, we have the design of several culvert replacements, which I haven't memorized these yet, so I got to read them off here. So there's 3 of them here. The first is 185 North Main Street, culvert there. The second is the 40 Forge Village Road. And the third one is Cold Spring Road near Old Homestead Road. So those are the 3 culverts put forward for design. Then we get into the bonding projects here. Of course, we have the new center building at 51 Main Street, which is in the financial model using an excluded debt. Then next up, we have the Cameron Senior Center HVAC renovation. Paul Fox is currently working with the design team to spec out the project and go out to bid. Hopefully we have a solid number before we vote on articles in April and May. Then we have the public safety upgrade to radio upgrade to fully digital. This is a public safety concern, so they can clearly communicate within all their equipment. This also includes the replacement of all the police cruiser radios as well. And then last of the borough, we have the construction of Plain Road Phase 1 pedestrian safety improvements, which is the sidewalk that goes from Nothing Road down to Grassy Pond. So we're improving on that project there. Then we just have a couple more down here. The engineering and construction of a fire training tower, that's for $817,000. This project is going to be located at 60 Forge Village Road. It's part of the 35 Town Farm Road project where Choice Inc. put in a bid to purchase that building and turn it into affordable housing. And one of the requirements was that the fire training tower be relocated. So the select board already appropriated $237,000 ARPA funding. And we're going to go to town meeting with a separate article to request $580,000 in capital stabilization funding to get the whole balance there. Then once the sale of 35 Town Farm Road goes through, we'll get $580,000 from that, and the plan is to replenish the capital stabilization fund. So we've done this with the joint dispatch in 63 Main Street. And lastly, we just have a couple of ARPA funded projects. One was an incline platform wheelchair lift at the Abbott School that was necessary to implement right away in December. So the select board did approve that. And of course, the design for the Blanchard wastewater tank, which I previously mentioned, for $30,000. So there's all of our projects. I'll stop here in case people have questions they want to ask.
Ingrid, why don't you go ahead?
What's the time frame for the debt exclusion for the town center building?
So it's a great question. So we have the vote in June, and I believe that, Andrea, do you know the answer to this, when we're going to have the vote on debt exclusion for the center building? Has the select board decided? Not yet. Okay.
No, we haven't. I'm sorry. I realized I was muted. No, we haven't decided or discussed that yet. Eric, you should make a note that we should discuss that at some point.
Tom, you have a question?
Really just a appreciation for the team that put this together. Just a great body of work and well done. So I know there's so much work, Dan, you and your team put together on this. So thanks. Thanks,
Tom. All right, now let's wrap this up. There are just a few things that weren't funded in this round. The fire department put forward for Fire Station 4, which is NAB, addition and renovation A&E for $300,000. We decided to push that off for a bit. They're looking for like a new bay for the ambulance and to renovate the kitchen, but we decided not to fund that at this point. And then the design for the Robinson Road at this point was pushed forward to a future year for consideration. And then, as always, we have various library requests that we're deferring due to the upcoming request for an override to renovate the library. And that is the end of the capital presentation. No more slides.
I had one more question.
Go ahead, Ingrid.
Similar to before, what's the anticipated, I mean, I know we don't know regarding the library grant, but when would kind of the earliest that we would potentially have to vote on a debt exclusion for that?
Also a great question. So I think they were talking about having rounds of funding as early as February and talking about expanding the funding as well. I haven't heard anything from Ellen Rainville, so I don't think that occurred. So hopefully we're looking at next year, so it doesn't coincide with the new center building this year. So most likely next year will be when we are awarded funding.
So we're thinking about 2 debt exclusions 1 year after the other, potentially?
Yeah, it's actually great timing because it's replacing all the debt fall off from the 3 schools and the highway department. So it actually layers in very nicely.
Ellen is actually here. Eric, if somebody could promote her, Ellen, could you answer this question?
Thank you. It took me a little bit of time to become a panelist. So we do not yet know if we'll be told we have a grant notification July of 22, which we hope actually does not occur and crowd the center building, or what we've always been anticipating, July of 2023. The regulations for the municipal library grant program is you have 6 months in which to have the 2 votes that approve your project. So there would have to be both a town meeting and a debt exclusion vote within 6 months. So for example, if we were told July 7th of this July that our grant notice was in play, we would probably have to come to the October 17th special town meeting and have a vote before December 31st. We are still waiting to hear from the Division of Capital and Administration and Finance as to whether they're going to expand the cap and we would get that notice this July, or whether it would be July of 2023, which is what we had always been anticipating. But it would be a 6-month window in which 2 positive votes would have to take place.
Thank you, Ellen. Any other questions?
I have a question also
Go ahead,
on the building.
Go ahead,
Um,
Beth.
So I know that it was kind of sent back to be reworked with the Sustainable Energy Committee. So I guess my question is, they're kind of reworking the design for sustainability. And what if it's not ready for town meeting in June? Would this just get rolled onto like next year's capital plan, or would we, if it doesn't happen this June? I guess my concern also is we have these 2 big projects, and I would rather prioritize the library over the center building. And because I guess I have concerns about them both passing back to back like that. And so I would really prioritize the library and wait on the center building, especially since we still have all these design questions that haven't been addressed. So.
Dan or Andrea, do you have any sort of insight as to what's going on with that right now?
I'm actually going to defer to Scott
Okay.
because we appointed a committee consisting of folks from both the Permanent Town Building Committee as well as the Sustainability Committee, and Scott is and Tom, but I don't see his hand up.
Right.
But Scott and Tom are the select board members and representatives. So I think Scott is probably better able to respond to Beth's question. So
That's right.
if I can yield to Scott.
Sure. Thank you, Andrea. That's right. I forgot Scott. Scott, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah,
And
and
then I'll
Tom
get to you,
will
Tom.
cover whatever I forgot. So yeah, we did have a joint meeting of architect, town building committee, sustainability committee, select board members about a week and a half ago or so. Went very, very well. The architects are going to come back with a quotation to advise us on what it would take to make the building net zero capable. So it may not be built or may not be built net zero on day 1, but it'd be net zero capable on day 1. That way we should get that quote, I would think, very soon. And then from there we'll move forward. But the cost differential may not be that big to make it net zero capable. That means that you got the you got the building envelope designed to be energy efficient. You've got the internal engineering and mechanicals to support what could be solar at some point. You can have an air heat pump, but you may or may not have the solar actually in place when they build it. That could always be deferred if we had to get things done on time. So we are trying to work towards that June schedule, but it still is a bit of a to be determined.
Thanks, Tom. And Tom Clay, if you had anything to add to that?
Just to compliment to what Scott said. So the big picture here, and Eric may want to lean on this too. So we have this great ESCO project we voted on recently to bring this firm in to help us advise us on all the energy saving measures in town. And that involves solar and all kinds of other things too. So we think those can marry well. Eric and I had a separate call with that group. They're going to help advise the Hermantown Building Committee on the main project. So I think that we're in good shape to get a lot of expertise on this project, and I think we'll be on track. I feel really optimistic about all the impact this can have for us.
Okay, and can I just ask both of you, once that's ready, will it go back to the select board? I just want to know where we should be watching for that. I think Andrea is shaking her head. Yes. Okay, so we'll watch the select board agenda to when that comes up.
Well, what
Great.
happens first, we actually approve the money to spend for the energy design work. So when that quote comes, that'll go to the select board to approve or not. So you'll see it, I think pretty quickly. Next, probably the 22nd meeting.
Okay. All right. So we'll watch for that. Thank you. And so anything else on that, the center building, Jeff?
Well, I would just want to sort of maybe give like a little backing there to what was said earlier. I would prioritize the library also based on the amount of money we would lose if we pass this up. Town has a long history of not participating in funding the library right from its inception, right? It was built by private donors and we don't do a very good job doing that. I was even there today working remotely using the library facilities along with a ton of other people. And I would hate to see us lose this large grant potential for a project that can probably be done in a reasonably near future time frame as well.
Okay. Tom LaFlame?
Yeah, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, center building would include the technology department, which, having been a member of that department, I know the state of the current facilities. For those of you who do not know, the critical infrastructure for the town is located in an old firehouse on the ground level in a room that was not designed for servers. I appreciate the fact of how much money we would be giving up with the library renovation, but this is a critical need infrastructure. And I would also assume that there would be some offset at some point by getting rid of a building in our inventory, being the current technology department. So I would certainly support making sure to invest in that. There was also some comments I had heard about meeting space, and I don't know that having that meeting space in the center building is incompatible with the library building project, being that maybe the library doesn't need to have a large meeting space, and that might help with their plans as well, given that now we would have a larger space across the street. In my years in municipal government, I have yet to hear anyone say we have too many large meeting spaces. I always see scheduling conflicts of where select board's going to meet, where finance will meet, where school committee. So I think that there's definitely a need for spaces, and I would definitely support the center building.
Okay. So while I understand there is a concern about having, potentially two large buildings, I think they were scheduled in our debt schedule fairly closely anyway. So I think once we get further into the budget hearings, we'll see that debt fall off, and it may not be such the issue that we think, but we'll certainly look at it once things come up. Anybody else have any other questions on capital? No. Okay, let's move on to revenue, Dan.
Okay, I gave my voice a minute to recover for a second there. All right, so this is a 26-page document. I'm not going to read all the information on there. It's more for just if you want to browse through, it's posted online. But I'm going to hit some of the highlights. And again, please just stop me if you have any questions as we're going. All right, so here's a nice summary page of all the different types of revenue that we have. The major ones being the property taxes, local revenue, and state aid, which are the general fund sources of revenue. We also have appropriations from free cash, enterprise revenue, and other available funds. And this is just a more in-depth detailed page. I'm not going to go through it. All right. Sorry, I skipped the page here. Here we go. All right, so property taxes make up about 76% of our general fund revenue. This has increased over the years as state aid has failed to keep pace with our revenue needs. And here's the calculation, which I just like to start off with. We have our for our property tax base. We start with our FY22 levy limit of 85 million. We add the 2.5% on top of the base of 2.1 million, and then we have a new growth estimate of 800,000 in there. On top of that, we have any debt exclusions that were approved by the town for a total FY23 tax levy of $90,758,487. Again, I like to provide lots of history on this, so we show the tax levy going back quite a few years. All right, again, this is just a brief description of different types of local revenue, but we have different pages for each of these, which I'll go through real quick. Motor vehicle excise, this is the largest source of our local revenue, makes up just under half of it. The actual amounts vary from the amount billed because not everybody pays their excise on time, unfortunately. And the town does usually have several commitments throughout the year. However, the largest commitment is sent out in February. You all should have received your excise bills. And this year's was 107,000 more than the commitment sent last February. So some positive news there. All right. Next page here is our local options. The hotel and meals excise taxes. Back in FY12, the town meeting approved a 2% additional surcharge on hotel taxes and a 0.75% surcharge on meals. And this is the revenue history here that we have. This was definitely the most impacted revenue stream from COVID. You can see the drop off in FY20 and FY21. We only brought in $602,000 total in 21. But the good news is it's starting to rebound. The hotel, the first 2 quarters we have here, it's 63% of the amount budget in FY20, which as you compare it to FY21, we're tracking much better. And then the meals excise is actually back at pre-pandemic amounts. So that's great news there. So we've had a nice rebound. In total, we're budgeting $1,015,000 in the financial model. We feel pretty confident about that figure. All right, next up is the penalties and interest. See here, so, you know, we do charge interest on late bills to keep our cash flow coming in so we can keep operations going. I will say that we did just have the other day a large payment come in for a house on Tingsboro Road that was way behind in their tax payments, and it was finally auctioned off and sold. So this amount has spiked quite a bit in the past couple days. I do have that amount. It's up to $186,000 because we just brought in about $70,000 from that one sale. And this amount can vary from year to year depending on what happens with individual properties. Next up, we have our payment in lieu of taxes, which are agreements that the select board enter into with normally nonprofits. Largest is MIT, and they pay their share every June. All right. Next, we're into fees. We have all sorts of different fees that we list here, mostly town clerk and whatnot for all sorts of certificates. We're tracking very well this year. Through 7 months, we're just under $200,000. So we should have no problem hitting our target this year. All right, just going through cemeteries. Happy to report that revenue is down this year after having a bad year last year. So we never like to see a high figure there. But typically in the past, we're always hovering around $30,000. And that's usually where we like to budget at. Other departmental revenue, we don't see a lot of revenue coming into here. But this year we actually did receive a check. We did have a fire and ambulance detail at a movie they were filming in town. So they rented our equipment and paid for the outside detail. So we actually saw a little bit of revenue come in here. All right, licenses and permits. Again, tracking pretty well. Building never seemed to slow down during the pandemic. So that's been a good bright spot for us. And, you know, as licenses and permits goes, typically new growth goes as well. So, you know, last year we had 874,000 in new growth with 965,000 in permits. So we're tracking pretty well again. So hopefully, you know, we come in at a little bit above that $800,000 figure. I did talk with Henry Fontaine, and you know, we're not expecting any huge projects to come in through the end of the year for licenses and permits. However, I believe they are they're planning to build 6 new houses at 22 Griffin Road, and we haven't received any permit revenue for those yet, so that we should see that coming in. All right, special assessments. This is basically just a schedule we have for you know, any betterments that are out there, and this is the amount due during the year. Sometimes people pay it off early because they sell the property. And of course, down below we have our fines. You know, the biggest contributor to the fines is the motor vehicle infractions. We did see a lull in FY20 as everybody was not driving around at that point, and we have seen activity pick up since then with the motor vehicle infractions. All right, this is always the saddest slide that I show, the investment income. This used to be a major source of our revenue. Back in 07, we brought in 846,000. This year, I think y'all know interest rates are very low. Our money market's earning about 0.1%. Right before the pandemic, we were seeing interest rates rise, but again, it's bottomed out at this point. You know, I think last year we brought in 71,000, and we're not tracking. We brought in 21,000 so far through December this year, so halfway through. So this is the only this and cemeteries are the 2 local revenue accounts that aren't quite keeping pace with the projections. All right, moving on. We have miscellaneous recurring revenue. This is revenue that we can use to balance the budget. The biggest part of this was during the construction of the Christopher Miller and Stony Brook schools. We were given a Massachusetts School Building Authority grant for $19 million, and that was amortized over the life of the debt payment. So in FY23, we have our last payment, so this chart will not extend out any further. And you know, it's been a great source of revenue. The interest was actually general fund revenue. At the time, it was growing at a rate of 4.25%, which is a fixed rate for the 20-year bond. And so we can see that we're receiving our last 24,000 general fund revenue from this in FY23. Now, other types of miscellaneous recurring revenue. Every year, the schools apply for Medicaid receipts to pay for health-related costs with the students. They did get an influx, the state got an influx of funding of 38 million. Ingrid probably knows about this. So we're able to go back and apply for additional funding, and we got 377, actually at the time it was like 313,000 in additional funding dating back to September of 2020 that you know, the schools applied for and were able to get. So that's currently in our bank at this point. That's great news. Other things here, we just have the typical Medicaid reimbursement for the ambulance set program we do every year with the state, and then we have the money for the Neshoba School Resource Officer. All right, miscellaneous non-recurring revenue. This is money that we don't use to balance the budget. It's just one-time funds that come in. It's not non-recurring. You know, we have all sorts of examples down here, like tax title, and you know, if we sell trucks or vehicles or anything like that. So you'll see here in FY22, we have 439,000 in there, and that's from the sale of 63 Main, which of course we already transferred into the capital stabilization account at this October special town meeting. Just a summary page, local revenue, and again, you know, if you want to read through this on the website, that's great. It's all the little descriptions about state aid that we have here. 2 pages worth of descriptions, so I won't go through them. So basically, it's kind of a high level on state aid. You know, in FY21, the state level funded due to the pandemic, so we didn't see an increase there with Chapter 70 and unrestricted aid. In FY22, we saw a total increase of just over $109,000. So on a $20 million budget, that's not a large percentage increase. And with the governor's initial budget that released back in January, we see a total increase of $144,000 in FY23. So we have a couple decreases in here, but basically we have $134,000 for Chapter 70, which is just a minimum $30 per student. And then we had a 2.7% increase in unrestricted aid. So this is just an initial budget for FY23. As it goes through the process at the state level, I'll send out updates to the to Jody to send to the Select Board and Finance Committee. And here's just a graph just showing the increase back from FY14. This would look more dramatic if it showed 0 through 16 million at the bottom here, but essentially over the past 9 years, we've had 1.78 million in general state aid increase, or just under 200,000 per year. All right, moving on to enterprise.
Dan,
Yes.
can you go to the previous slide, the state aid? So have you ever got a chance to calculate the yearly rate of increase for the blue and green boxes? Like, is it going at par with our 2.5% or is it less percentage increase as the year goes by?
The blue's under 1%. It's not keeping pace. So
okay.
Part of it's the declining enrollment in schools that we've had for the past several years at this point. So we're just getting the minimum Chapter 70 contribution. The unrestricted aid is actually growing at the rate of growth that the state's growing. However, it's only $2 million out of the $20 million budget. So it's 60,000, 70,000 a year that increase.
Okay.
All right, moving on to enterprise. We have the 4 enterprises listed here: the water, recreation, ambulance, and stormwater, and the history of revenue that's been brought in. The 22 actuals do include the general fund subsidies and any supplemental funding that's out there. Let's see here. So recreation is the one that we're still watching closely. They were the most impacted during the pandemic, and the after school, the WPC program is running again. However, it's not at the levels that they were at prior to the pandemic, of course. So I think the recreation has brought in 474,000 in revenue, and with the subsidy from the ARPA and general fund subsidy, they're at 864,000. So again, as we move forward to town meeting, we're going to have to work with the DOR on the updated projection. We'll see what enrollment looks like next September, and then we may have to apply one-time funds, whether rec enterprise or retained earnings, or make budget adjustments in October. We can still do that, but we'll be keeping a close eye on this.
Dan, I have a question on the recreation enterprise revenue for FY23. What's the estimate? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, it was right around 1.2 million. So we're tracking at 470. Well, we have 474 right now. There are 2 more sessions of the after school that are occurring, and then usually the summer program bumps up about $120,000 or so.
That's 22 though, right? That's this current year.
Yeah, for 22, and then the DOR bases the revenue estimate for 23 on the FY22 actual revenue received, unless we can justify why we have a higher projection. So we have a pretty good narrative for that, and they were pretty easy to work with this year when we went through that process. Because in FY21, I think we only brought in about 240,000 in revenue total. So, and they approved a budget of around 800,000. So, yeah. So we'll keep a close eye on this, and hopefully the enrollment ramps back up as things go back to the new normal.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right, and then below, I just like to list the general fund subsidies that have occurred throughout the years, just so we have a good understanding of what those are. So again, for FY23, recreations as a subsidy of 54,000 at this moment as they built their budget. We saw a decrease in ambulance as well. And then the stormwater, we committed to doing 600,000 a year. In FY22, the reason it was lower is because we had to reimburse the general fund for the purchase of the sweeper that we did that year, which is meant to be paid for from Stormwater Enterprise. Again, I just have more information here on the enterprises if you would like to read at your leisure. And then we have other revenue that can be used to, or other available funds, I should say, that can be used to offset the budget. Just a few types here that we're planning on using at the annual town meeting. We have our normal 3,000 to offset the senior fitness revolving account to pay for the maintenance and cleaning of that. As I mentioned during the capital stabilization presentation, we're planning on using 580,000 to fund the Ford Village Road Fire Training Facility. And we're planning to use $100,000 to offset the FY23 budget and overlay. Last year, we did use $80,000 for that. CPA, all right, I'm gonna zoom in on this a little bit because I know it's small, but this is a complete revenue history for CPA. Overall, we've raised $28.7 million locally through the CPA surcharge, and we've had matching funds of $13,776,000. So it's a great return on investment. I want to point out the amount we received this year. We got in $1,015,000 from the state, which is up from $636,000 last year. So the CPA is doing pretty well financially at this point. And lastly, free cash. We don't like to use this to balance the budget, and we just want to show the history of how we've evolved over the years. We used to include, use free cash to apply to the budget and then close out a bunch of funds from the budget to replenish free cash. However, since FY15, we've been very careful not to stop that practice as recommended by our auditors and bond rating agencies. And in just a few instances, we've applied a little bit of funding in FY18 and FY21 just to balance the budget at town meeting. But the intention is always go into the annual town meeting with the proposed balanced budget. And that is the end of the revenue presentation.
Anyone have any questions? You can, I can't see everyone, so if you can use the raise hand, then I can see you.
That is a raise hand.
Dennis has a question.
Okay,
Dennis
go
has a
ahead.
question.
Hey, Dan, nice presentation. I just have a question for you. As I was looking through the budget material, there's a fairly significant increase in the community preservation fund from, I think it's around 800,000 to over a million. Can you explain what if that's correct and why?
On this page?
Yeah, I know I have it on the on the previous stuff that was sent out. Maybe that's what I had. I mean, is it changed?
No, I mean, why we got more money from the state? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a $400,000 increase that we got from the state. So in this fiscal year, so that's the main contributor, and of course the surcharge grows each year as well. So yeah, it's a combination of those two, but it's good news that we're getting money in from the state.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't think so.
I had a
Go ahead,
question.
Beth.
So I was just wondering if the meals and hotel tax is a shortfall again, which I know you're confident that, we're kind of back on track, because I guess I'm just concerned that maybe we're being a little too rosy in that estimate. So could you use ARPA funds if there is shortfalls in revenue?
So we don't actually vote on the local revenue amounts. When it comes time to do the tax rate recap in next November, if we have excess funds in another local revenue account, we could use those to offset any potential decrease in another area. So it's more of a balancing act at that time. And this is really the place that we have a little bit of flexibility to balance the budget at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any
Dan?
other questions? Hari, do you have a question?
Yeah, so are we still on track to maintain AAA rating?
AAA rating? That's a great question, Hari. We did go through an interview process with them back in June, and it went very well. The ARPA funding really helped, showing that we had $7+ million coming our way. So of course, it helped our bond rating significantly. And yeah, I don't see any red flags why it would go down at this point.
Okay. No, I'm just curious asking. It's not like I'm asking it wrong reasons. So you just want to make sure that
Yep.
we have keeping an eye on that, right? Because that provides additional costs for us if there's a dent in that.
Yep, we're always keeping an eye on that. We don't want to see that go down. So,
Yeah.
But
so one question just occurred to me when you were giving the motorcycle excise presentation, right? So it doesn't depend on the retail value of the cars because now all the cars are more expensive than last year. That doesn't change how we calculate the value of a car and put excise tax on it. Correct?
well, the motor vehicle excise is based on the Kelly Blue Book value. So if the value of cars goes up, then the assessment can go up as well. But
Okay, that's
after,
interesting to know.
yeah, it's based on a certain percentage each year, the Kelly Blue Book value. I don't have it right in front of me, but after 5 years of owning your car, that's the final excise amount that you'll be paying. The excise amount won't change after that.
Okay. So we could technically see a marginal increase in taxes because all the cars are being sold at a higher price right now. So KBB values will be a little bit higher than what they used to be for the previous year. I'm just taking a hypothetical.
Yeah, that could happen if the values of cars go up. Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, not seeing any questions. So let's go on to our 7:55 agenda item, which is the discussion of the mailing of the Finance Committee book. I put together just a brief presentation that got added to the packet just to kind of collect everything that we had talked about previously. I sent out, oh, thanks, Dan. I'm not going to go through this, but if you guys want to look through it, or Dan, if you just want to scroll through or whatever, that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to put it back up. I just wanted to get a vote from Finance Committee, just saying that we definitely want to move forward with this. Dan put a placeholder article on the warrant. We have to flush out just to make sure that we've got all the changes for the bylaws and things like that. So we're not exactly voting on the article. I just want to get a vote from the committee, a formal vote that we're going to go ahead with it.
So are we talking about making a recommendation about whether to go forward with the book? Can you explain what the vote is actually about?
I just want to, we discussed it last time and everyone seemed in favor of going ahead with not mailing the book. So, but we didn't vote. So I would just like a vote from the Finance Committee, just kind of saying, yes, we want to go ahead with bringing the article to town meeting. So we're not recommending anything yet, just that. But actually, let me back up a little bit. Does the select board have any input or, questions, comments, anything on this before I do that?
Anybody from the board have any questions or comments?
John? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I remember when this came before the Finance Committee a while back, and my concern's always been getting the information to the voter at the annual town meeting. Now, do I understand this to mean that you're still going to print the same number of copies? And the only savings would be the mailing?
Well, no, because right now we print over 8,000 copies to send one to each household. So we're not going to print 8,000. We'll print, however many we need to keep them stocked in the Cameron Senior Center, the library, and the town hall. if people want to pick up a copy.
Well, how do you know what that number is?
Well, as I understand it, we can keep printing more. It'll be done in-house. So some can be printed. If they run out, more can be printed on an as-needed basis.
Kind of like the US Treasury.
Well, I think, well, you accomplish two things. I guess you save a little money and then you can move out, you can delay approval of it, I guess, with the budget a little bit. I mean, you're not stressed for time.
Yeah, that was really,
My position always has been more information the voters can get, the better. And so just personally, I think I saw what we sent out to one of the town meetings, the little fly sheet we sent out. I think more detail, if you put more detail in there as far as how the budget supports, that might help out. So in one hand, I'm for it, and the other hand, I'm not. I just
so the book, John, so the book will still be created and available. It just won't get mailed to every house. But we will send out what we call the postcard that we send for special town meeting with the warrant summary, the date, the time, the location of town meeting, and how to get a full copy, whether it's a paper copy or an electronic version. So all of that information will still be available. People just might have to go pick up a copy or use the electronic version.
I'm looking at the one from June the 20th, 2020, and I see the detail. I just think you ought to take a look at it and consider maybe a little bit more detail in that, not to increase the paper or anything like that, but so, okay.
Okay, Dennis?
Yeah, a couple of things on this. I remember the discussion last time, and it was under a little bit different financial circumstances. I think it was a period of time where there was a concern whether, this was an expensive thing. I mean, the expense was I think the big argument. But when you look at it, and some of the discussion that I've heard around town as a result of what we were contemplating on doing was that there was a little bit of a pushback that I saw from it. And I think that the budget, while we have money, which we do right now, and there's a concern now also about people not participating in town meeting, or they're not active in town meeting. The budget book is, in my experience, has been a very interesting way of getting people to show up, because when they have a chance to read it, they find out something went on that they're not happy with, or they have a question. That sometimes is a draw to get them to town meeting. So I kind of not as warm to the idea as I was previously when it looked like we didn't have any cash. So I just wanted to throw that out for you for consideration.
Okay, just to add to that, so I actually did bring this to the Access to Town Meeting Committee, and they were for it. Just FYI. Tom LaFlame?
So, and I was just approaching this not from a cost savings standpoint. More, there is a big push to becoming a more green community, and the amount of paper that is taken to print these books. I mean, if you wanted to look at the cost, it's not just the cost of the printing, but then also, the tonnage of the recycling as well. I, for one, haven't necessarily read the detail of the Finance Committee book in my 5 years in town, in part because I don't really get as much out of it as hearing the discussion. So I think in some ways we might find that it does, if we are promoting how to get the information and getting more detail at town meeting or more detail at finance committee meetings or whatever, we might actually see some level of increase in participation in the process, and not just reading about it and going, I don't agree with it, but I'm just not going to go. So
okay. Ari?
So just to clarify what we're going to today is we are going to vote to put an article in the town meeting, but not necessarily the content of that article or the process with which we stop mailing is TBD. Is that correct?
So all I'm asking the finance committee for is, so there, right now, I had Dan put a placeholder on the warrant for this article, and it says, sponsored by the finance committee. So I just want the finance committee to tell me, yes, let's put that warrant, put that article on the warrant. And we will continue to get the details, and then it will come up in April, and then we'll recommend or not. That's
It will
all.
be
I don't want to be putting this on all just myself.
It's just not, it's just a couple of sentences, right? Can we take a stab at what would be the wording that we're gonna put in the article now?
But we don't need to do that. I just want to, do we want to go ahead with this general outline of an article? And then we'll before you get to say yes or no, whether you really want to recommend this, you'll see the whole thing. I just want to say, do we want to go ahead with generally what we've talked about for this
Yeah.
article?
I can get behind this. We as finance committee, at least I support the idea of not mailing not mailing finance committee books.
So let me take a stab at a motion, and
Yes,
if
that's what I'm looking
somebody
for.
can, yeah. So I'm
Not
sorry,
your
John,
motion,
did you want to
John.
say something before I?
Well, I just want to know, this will require a bylaw change, won't it?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
So I move that the finance committee add a article to the warrant regarding mailing of the finance committee book. Do I have
I'll
a
second that.
Okay,
Second,
all right, so now I'm going to do a roll call. Dennis,
Nay.
Hari,
Yes.
Ingrid,
aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, so not unanimous, but it passed. Thank you. Andrew, did you want anything else?
No,
Okay.
I mean, it's right now it's your motion and what you're bringing forth, and we'll obviously discuss it, when it comes before the select board.
Right.
Christina?
Yep.
If you need help with coming up with wordage, I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you, Ingrid. I appreciate that. Okay, so if there's no more discussion on that, I think we can move on to the approval of our minutes. If the select board
So,
wants to
so
hang out or not.
Christina, before you do that, I think the select board, we're done for tonight.
Yep.
You don't need us. So can I have a motion? Actually, let's just do this officially. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
All those in favor, just raise your hands. Okay, thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
thank you.
Everybody
Thank
have a
you.
good
Thanks,
evening.
FinCom. Great seeing you guys again.
Thanks, John. Okay, so our minutes from January 27th meeting, anybody have any comments? No, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Dennis?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. Hari,
Yes.
Ingrid? Yep, aye, okay. Jake,
Aye.
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay. Board and committee updates. I don't know that we really have a lot. We just did capital planning, so I think that takes care of that. Dennis, anything new on town and school safety task force?
No, I got my renewal notice today. I got to fill it
Gotcha.
out and get it back up. But I've been tracking the town site, And I haven't seen any meetings of that committee at all.
Okay.
I may reach out to Tom Clay or Scott and find out what the status is, but
Yeah.
nothing's happened.
Okay. Hari School Committee, we're gonna see their budget next week, so I don't know if there's much unless you have something, anything. No, okay. Permanent Town Building, Jeff Hillam, anything? They've been,
Sorry about that. I mean, I don't have anything other than what sort of got tossed around tonight, but I imagine there's more on its way.
okay. Community preservation, Dan kind of went over some of that in capital, so I think we're probably caught up there. We have the recreation feasibility study on here, but I think Heather's kind of done with that because it's moved on to the actual study phase, and I don't think she's really part of that. So we can kind of skip over that. And then the energy performance contract. Jake, do you know where they are on that?
Yeah, so they've started to get to work already. The vendor that was selected, it was Amoresco out of Framingham. So they've been working on a lighting audit of various school buildings. That's done now. They're moving on to an audit of the mechanical systems next. They're also hammering out some final insurance language on the IGA contract. IGA is industrial grade audit. So that's a requirement as we go through these large enterprise type contracts with the vendor. But already getting started on the audit during the winter months. So good progress so far.
Okay. Great. So I think that's about it. We have our future meetings next week being the school budget. And I don't know, does anybody have anything else?
Is Danny still with us or did he leave?
I'm
Dan?
still there.
I
Yep.
just have a question for Dan. This is just a refresher for me. When you were given the revenue figures on the Proposition 2.5, that 2.5% that's applied, is that 2.5% taken off of last year's revenue? Is that what it is? Or how is that? I just want to clarify that for myself.
Yeah, it's last year's final tax levy, not including the excluded debt. It's 2.5% on top of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone
All
else?
set,
Or
all set,
we
Christine.
ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a second? Okay. It's all in favor. Let's just wave goodbye. Is that good enough? Okay. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you next
Thank
week.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.